President Trump is very angry, even pissed, with his Russian counterpart.
The beginning of the manipulation campaign to show just how smart Trump is.
Afghanistan would be wiped off the face of the earth.
Vladimir Putin wants to use nuclear weapons.
We will back that up.
Vladimir situation over the U.S.
Welcome to Tactical Truths, the go-to series for military news, tactical analysis, and frontline stories that matter. Before we get started, I need your help. 73% of you who watch regularly haven't subscribed yet. If you like what we do, hit that subscribe button, it's free, and helps us make this show better for you every single week. I'm Phil Campion, former UK SAS, and this is Tactical Truths. Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, they've both got egos like small planets. But who's the daddy? Shall we have a butchers? Come on, let's dive in and have a look at these pair, because they're going head to head.
Putin is a curious mixture of KGB.
Curious, to say the word, but he is old school. That's one thing about Putin, proper old school.
And what you might call Russian orthodoxy / imperialism.
Old school in our language.
The idea that animates him is the idea of a great Russia, a powerful Russia.
See, that would have been the Russia that he grew up in. It would have been absolutely bigger than Ben-Hur, you know what I mean? Everything was big, wasn't it? The murals were big, Moscow was big, the missiles were big, everything was big, including his ego. They put on a parade there. I mean, Kim Jong-un has sort of like modelled himself around this a little bit, hasn't he? But they're the daddies of putting on those big parades, aren't they?
When Vladimir Putin was born. Biography isn't necessarily destiny, but he came from a pretty working class family in what was then Leningrad.
A working class family. Keir Starmer paid note. Was his old man a toolmaker? Oh, right, let's crack on.
His grandfather, allegedly, was cook to Lenin and Stalin, so there was already a connection with the Kremlin.
Oh, it's not the sort of like you're not on par, are you? But it's a connection, isn't it? It's a connection. It's there, isn't it? So he's obviously it's in the DNA, isn't it? It's in the family. People, photographs would have been. Oh yeah, he knows him. Do you know what I mean? All that sort of stuff would have inspired him on.
What was interesting about the young Putin is that he had one burning ambition, and the ambition wasn't to make the world a better place. The ambition was to join the KGB.
That's an ambition, isn't it? To join the KGB. Here comes the Trumpster. Let's have a quick look at him.
You have that other one to sign?
Sure. The first item that President Trump is signing is the rescission of 78 Biden-era executive actions,
Big, brash, bold, in your face, social media, you name it, he's up to it.
Orders, presidential memoranda, and others.
That chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
There you go. Let's just go back to that time that he was shot at. Actually gets hit in the ear. And he wants to get some selfies done and he wants some good press out of that. And he's stomping his feet and waving his hands and making the most of it, to be honest. I didn't pick this out the first time round, I don't think, but look, you're fired. Quite literally, you are fired. Being fired at. So he goes, oh yeah, I've been shot in my ear. Then he gets told to get down, gets down. But anyway, the point here is he's a different animal to Putin, all right? He's big, he's bold, he's brash, he's in your face.
President Trump has just walked across the demarcation line that made him the first U.S. president.
Loves a bit of showboating, loves a bit of look at me. And it's all look at me with him, innit? Do you know what I mean? So it's like, you know, here he is with Kim Jong-un, but it's look at me. Look at his postures around him. This would not have been possible without me.
President to visit our country.
I just want to say that this is my honor. I didn't really expect it. We were in Japan for the G20. We came over. And
This is my honor to meet Rocket Man.
I said, hey, I'm over.
Rocket Man's smaller than me. I've got my tallest shoes on, and look at me with Rocket Man. You can see the picture beyond building here, can't you?
Here, I want to call it to Chairman Kim. And we got to meet, and stepping across that line was a great honor. A lot of progress has been made.
Gonna say Kim Jong-un's like, what is going on here, isn't he? Do you know, look at his face. He's proper Mr. Confused.
A lot of friendships have been made, and this has been in particular a great friendship. So
their nearly 2-hour-long phone call ended with a vague agreement that the war in Ukraine should end with a lasting peace, with negotiations to start immediately. How U.S. President...
I mean, that is a phone call you'd like to have been sat on, wouldn't it? Do you know what I mean? A fly on the wall. And that would have been a fascinating conversation, wouldn't it, I think?
Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin get...
Let's not forget, Trump is a businessman. First and foremost, he's cut his teeth making lots of money. Losing money, making money. He's a risk taker. He'll go in full guns blazing.
There is another matter. Putin agreed to stop attacking energy targets for the next 30 days, falling short of the U.S.-backed 30-day unconditional ceasefire Ukraine previously agreed to. What's more, the Kremlin said any lasting peace must see the complete halt of foreign...
So the business deal, as I understand it, has to leave both parties feeling happy. And that's where they're trying to get to, but they're such different people with such different outlooks on life.
Military aid and intelligence sharing with Ukraine, and must address what Putin called the root causes of the crisis. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said even a partial ceasefire would be a step toward peace.
I mean, that is fine, what he's talking about there, and you can see where he's coming from. But what Trump has tried to do, I think, is basically say to him, you're not paying the bills, son, so shut up while the big boys talk about this first. And that's where I think all this, if you look at the bigger picture for me, that's where I think Donald Trump was coming from. It wasn't to just belittle him. It was to take him out of the frame, put him to one side and say, you can have your say when I've sorted it out with this geezer here. Because the big dog in the arena, really, out of that arrangement, is Putin, isn't it?
But warned Moscow was seeking to weaken Kyiv with its demands.
I think it's absolutely a dangerous precedent, in part because it deflects away from the fact that this war...
Trump doesn't seem to care who started the war. He seems, to be fair, more intent on getting it finished and getting a deal out of it. And that's where he's at.
...is a result of Vladimir Putin's Russia invading its neighbor.
Trump described the call as productive. Left unsaid is what concessions the U.S. may ultimately demand from Kyiv.
I think that's going to be key to it. I think what's going to happen here, looking at it from Donald Trump's point of view, is Putin is not going to move until Putin gets a credible off-ramp, all right? So Putin's just going to play his game until he can put the thing down without losing too much face. If he gets no land out of the deal whatsoever, he's had his arse handed to him on a plate and he's got to get his arse out of there. So I can see slightly where Donald Trump is coming from with this. It's a difficult one because the off-ramp is going to upset somebody. It's going to upset the Ukrainians. They're going to have to relent. It's going to upset the Europeans who've put a lot of time and effort and money into this, all right? So, yeah, tactics. Bigger picture is what I'm trying to get to.
After long hinting Ukraine should be prepared to give up territory.
Returning to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders is an unrealistic objective.
Exactly 11 years after Russia annexed Crimea, there are reports Trump has weighed recognizing the peninsula as Russian territory, though he has not announced any formal decision.
He would be immediately giving up perhaps the most important negotiating card.
For now,
I think that is right. The Trump-Putin talk is a good start. It's how that thing manifests now. And how many people are going to get their noses put out of joint with this journey going on? You know, these are two big forces bumping up against each other here. And at the moment, they don't seem too rattled by anybody else, not even bothered. You know, we've just recently seen trade sanctions coming in by Trump. He's like that. I'll tell you what, you're not taking the mickey out of me anymore, all right? He's not afraid to upset people.
European leaders will only call the Trump-Putin talk a good...
And actually, to be fair, Putin must be sitting back going, I'll let you do the work for me. You know, all right?
Start, but warn Ukraine must have a seat at the negotiating table for there to be a lasting peace, a sentiment echoed by Ukraine. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Washington.
Right, this is Chip Chapman. He speaks a lot of sense way above my pay grade. Like, do you know what I mean? He's a good guy. I've met him a couple of times.
Strategy on the Russians in terms of either sanctions, a weapon supply to Ukraine, or oil price doesn't seem to be there at the moment. So I think one of the things that one would be looking for, if this is a sort of kabuki dance, is the moment that Trump either condemns or says something negative about Putin.
Let's come on to the war in Ukraine specifically. Talks between US and Russian officials took place in Saudi Arabia yesterday. The Kremlin says the contents of the talk will not be published, with the results still being analysed by both.
Again, that's indicative of Putin's methodology. He doesn't do the standing up and shouting and shaking his fists and yelling and putting it on social media. Gets the information, takes it back, sits on it, works it out. Okay?
Sides. We had expected a joint...
Very much KGB-like. How you would expect the KGB to be like. How you would expect the KGB to be like.
Statements as to what was discussed this morning. Had nothing so far. Is Russia deliberately stringing along the Americans here?
Probably. This is, again, one of the things I learned in America, which you don't often hear in the UK, is this notion of a kabuki dance. And it was a phrase that Jim Mattis used.
Well, so we'll let the general describe this kabuki dance, as he calls it. And it is something that we don't really hear of in the UK, but it's a good analogy of what's going on.
To use a lot, which is a symbolic rather than a sort of substantial negotiations. And a kabuki dance is a stylized Japanese dancing. It's political grandstanding theatre. Now, Russia will want to try and not to be seen as the bad guy in this.
There you go, keeping his credibility, like I said.
And will try and give a little bit of an inch, but they won't give much more than an inch. This is for show for an audience, in my view, at the moment. Nothing.
A good bit of PR.
Substantive. And again, we shouldn't necessarily think of this in a linear fashion. So I think, for example, the first thing you have to do is go back to the 8th of December. That was the date that Trump was in at Notre Dame, and the day that Assad fell. And on that day, he sort of said, let's have an immediate ceasefire and negotiations. We're now near the end of March. We haven't got.
So there's nitty-gritties. There's like, what do you define as what? How do you define? Which way do you see it? How does the land lay? All that sort of stuff. You can see as this unravels, it's an absolute minefield, isn't it?
Russian war machine, because it's the money that comes from that which allows them to continue the war. So all those things show you the complexity, both in what is in terms of the targets, and secondly, potentially the weapons that you should use against it. Now, one of the things, again, here that we look at is sort of game theory. Game theory in international relations looks at these strategic interactions to understand the dynamics of negotiation, deterrence, and cooperation. And all of this is a sort of bargaining matrix. But at the moment, the thing looks...
Let's put this in layman's terms, shall we? Both parties are trying to get out of this deal what they want. But to get that, they have to make some sort of agreement. The complexities of it are super complicated. I'm not even going to try and get my head around it. But just say they're trying to strike a deal by offering, showing, maybe offering, pretending to take, stringing along, and they're trying to get to this juncture the best way they can, with two guys who are completely opposite, to be honest.
Sort of slightly skewed towards the Russians, because we did think that there would be some sort of pressure strategy on the Russians, whereas up to this point, we've just had a pressure strategy on the Ukrainians in terms of, the cessation of intelligence, weapons and satellite feeds, which seem to come online again somewhere around, I think, the 11th of March, whereas the pressure strategy on the Russians in terms of either sanctions, a weapon supply to Ukraine, or oil price doesn't seem to be there at the moment. So I think one of the things that one would be looking for, if this is a sort of kabuki dance, is the moment that Trump either condemns or says something negative about Putin, which at the moment he's not done so.
Trump versus Putin. Who's the greatest tactician? Right, let's cut the noise. Two of the world's most divisive leaders, two completely different styles. But one big question. Who's the better tactician, Trump or Putin? Now, I've seen planning in war zones. I know what real strategy looks like. And make no mistake, both these blokes play the game hard. Putin, cold, calculated, ex-KGB. He plays the long game like a chess master from hell. He doesn't care about PR, sanctions, or Western outrage. He moves when he wants, how he wants. Crimea, Syria, Ukraine. He's always 5 moves ahead, and he doesn't blink. But here's a twist. Trump, for all his chaos and Twitter tantrums, knows how to flip the board. He's not playing chess. He's playing poker. Bluff, bluster, bold moves, peace deals in the Middle East, trade wars with China. And like it or not, no new wars under his watch. That's not an accident. That's strategy, the kind you don't see until it's done. Putin builds his empires in the shadows. Trump storms to the front gate with fireworks. One plays covert, the other plays overt. One uses spies, the other uses sound bites. But both get results. So who's the better tactician? It depends. Do you rate subtle power moves over global disruption? Putin is consistent, relentless, and ruthlessly efficient. Trump is erratic, disruptive, and terrifyingly unpredictable. But unpredictability is a tactic in itself. If I wanted someone to run a covert OP behind enemy lines, I'd pick Putin all day long. But if I wanted to throw the enemy into complete disarray, Trump's your man. So, maybe the real answer is this. It's not about who's better, it's about what battlefield you're on. And in today's world, they're both dangerous in their own way. And if you underestimate either one, you're already losing.